Keep up with Scottish football with your host, John Turner.
So in this week's episode of the Low Ball Show, I am joined with current Broomhill FC director George Fraser. George, thanks for joining us this evening.
No problem at all, John. It's a pleasure.
And I know we'd kind of had a quick chat off camera, but I seen just to kind of quickly go into it. I seen that your game tomorrow is obviously cancelled with the weather. Obviously, I appreciate the safety concerns and the not seeing a lot of football being played, but with the kind of weather in Scotland, is that ever a frustration when you then start to get a fixture build-up?
Yeah, I think it is. It's more a frustration for the manager than the players. You know, it kind of makes plans, and you set your stall out for the week, set your plans out for the week, and then it's sort of thrown into chaos because what's happened, obviously, we've cancelled our training venue for tomorrow night as well, in light of the fact we had a game, So, but listen, these things happen in Scotland, so it's to be expected.
And how, in regards to you saying, obviously, the kind of training venue getting cancelled, so is that a kind of look about to find somewhere or try and kind of pick somewhere else up, or is that a night off for the players?
No, I think what will happen is obviously, given, we've got to take into account asking players to travel anywhere tomorrow night and when there's weather warnings out. So usually the manager will ask them to do their own thing, and put a bit of trust in them to go and keep themselves fit for the night, and it's only one night, so it's not going to make a massive difference. And we had a really tough game at the weekend, so they'll probably be welcoming of the recovery time.
Yeah, and with obviously being in your position, with it being January, do you find that being a kind of busier month than normal?
Well, I mean, we're not subject to the transfer window, so kind of it's an ongoing process, John. I mean, you do tend to get more SPFL clubs in saying that, offering players out to come out on loan, etc., or players getting released from SPFL clubs because it's the January transfer window for them. So yeah, you do tend to get a wee bit more traffic in terms of phone calls and emails and texts, stuff like that, with the players who are available and who are looking for a club.
And just to kind of maybe push back a wee bit further, with yourself at Broomhill, I mean, how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, I've been with Broomhill since 2005, 2004, 2005, and the club had just started that year, and we were looking for a place for my son to go and play. I went along to training one night, and they took part. And obviously, every night you go to training, you get noticed. So it's kind of like they're looking for volunteers. Do you want to do this? And before you know it, you're a volunteer, and that snowballs into something else, and it just grows arms and legs from there. So I've been with the club since almost the inception of it. So it's been a long journey, but it's been thoroughly enjoyable.
And one thing, because as much as obviously I've kind of spoke to a lot of people, and it's kind of an area that has never really been touched on or spoke about, but in doing what I do, I think it's pretty important to touch on. With you saying the kind of volunteering initially and the looking for people to do it, I mean, how important is it, to find, that kind of group of volunteers that are willing to?
Yeah, it's vital for all clubs, I think, John. Without volunteers, you don't have a club and you don't have teams. I mean, there's so many roles to fill at a club. For doing the kit, the laundry, to doing team lines, to taking the kids, making sure you have enough adult supervision at games. It's a myriad of jobs, and it's clubs find it difficult, and all over the country to get volunteers because you're asking people to give up a fair chunk of their time during the week, and listen, everyone's got their own priorities and their own other hobbies to do, if you like. So it's really difficult to get volunteers, and quite rightly, there's a lot of processes to go through before you become a volunteer. You get all your PVG stuff and stuff like that. So which is essential. But yeah, listen, it can sometimes though be off-putting to people, to go through all these processes, but it's worth it. I've found that it's been brilliant for me. I love it. And that's what I do, and continue to do it for as long as I can. But I think for anyone looking to volunteer, I would say get involved, come and do it. It's fulfilling.
And obviously, you kind of touched on, I mean, some of the roles there that the kind of volunteers are, looking to do. I mean, I'm assuming that's not kind of limited. I would imagine there's a lot more,
Yeah.
of stuff out there.
Loads of stuff to do it. There's always stuff to do at club, fundraising, coaching, driving a bus, driving a car, anything like that. I mean, you can never have enough volunteers. That's what I would say. You can never have enough. I mean, because when you have a lot of teams at your club, for instance, and there's many clubs out there who do, some cracking setups, but you're always needing someone, to do something, and the jobs are endless. But that's what makes it, That's what makes it.
And I mean, obviously, with yourself and your kind of start to the story there being a prime example of, heading along to watch your boy training, and these years down the line, the position that you hold and you're at within the club.
Yep.
I would assume all the years ago you didn't expect that.
No, you never do. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? You get involved with something and you don't know where it's going to lead. But you just go with the flow. If something needs done, you go and do it. So yeah, it's like you go along, get involved, and it'll grow arms and legs before you know it. Which is great for some people, not great for everybody.
And this is probably the one area that is always kind of hated speaking about, but what are the kind of headaches or stresses that in general come with the role that you do?
Oh, there's many, there's a lot of frustrations, and I found that, particularly in my own situation, when my son got to like under 16, under 17 time, and they find other hobbies to do, they've got girlfriends and they've got other distractions, so there was a wee fall off in attendance, and you think, oh, goodness, that's really frustrating, but it's understandable. They're teenage boys, so it's just, I get it. But there's loads of stuff.
I'm assuming you're thinking when that now, when obviously teenage boys all go through that side of, getting out with pals or girlfriends or whatever else, but you're thinking, listen, I'm committed to this now. You put me in this role.
That's what happens, that's what happens. You just got to go with the flow on it. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is give them an environment to come and enjoy it, come and play, come and socialise with the pals, and that's all you can do. It's you can't force someone. I never would force someone to come along to.
Yeah.
That's the quickest way to putting somebody off coming.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it was obviously, you can imagine me doing this. I travel about a lot of different grounds, a lot of different clubs, and one of the things that I hated. Now, go and see football at all levels, and it was a few weeks back. I couldn't find a game, so I went down to the kind of local pitches.
Yeah.
And seen a game there, and it was just seeing some of the parents screaming in the touchline, and I'm thinking that's the quickest way to make them not want to come back.
John, listen, I can 100% agree with you. It's my biggest bugbear in football. Even coaches, you go down and you watch football, and my biggest pet hate in football, and it's not a massive thing, but see a coach that stands about 5 yards on the pitch when the game's going on, there's no need for it.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's a lot of parents out there. They want their kids to do well. I understand. I get it. Understand it. But it can become a hindrance quite quickly, because what's happening is the kids listening to the parent instead of listening to the coach.
Yeah.
And they're distracted all over the place. They're sort of looking at the parent and he's giving them advice, and then the coach saying another thing, and the kids sometimes don't know what to do, and it's just, I understand, I get it. The parents just want them to do well, and it's all with good intentions. But if I would say one thing, please just let them go and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy your football. They're not going to win a World Cup that year. Just let them enjoy themselves. That's all I say.
And with yourselves in the club, I mean, it's been an interesting probably last few years for you.
It has, aye. It's been. I mean, listen, it's been well documented history. You know, we split a wee bit from the sports club side of things, changed our name back to Broomhill, and then obviously we had the last year with we had to go with the Open Goal and changed our name again to Open Goal Broomhill. So it's been interesting, you know. It's been good. It's you know, one of my philosophies in football, if you like, if you want to call it that, is don't be scared to try something new, you know, because you never know. It might not work and it might work, you know, but unless you try it, you'll never know. You know, and that's the thing.
And I think, and this is kind of getting into the general side of it, but, and I totally agree, you know, to try it, you know, it might work, it might not, but it's an experience, it's a learning curve. And I think especially in that league, it's such a highly competitive league that I do kind of feel you have to try something to be, you know, it shows when the teams that come down aren't going back up.
Yeah, that's exactly it, John. You know, I mean, there's, you know, we've not, as of yet, you know, every team that's came down hasn't really been that close to going back up. But yet, every one of the teams who have left the Lowland League to go up have almost flourished and prospered, you know, and nobody's came back down to the Lowland League once they went up from the Lowland League. So I think that's testament to the competitive nature and the standard of the Lowland League, you know. I'm not going to say teams who have came down have underestimated it, but they perhaps didn't know the levels until you get into it, you know, and that's no blame on them, you know, because they've got their own battles to fight, or they had their own battles when they were in League Two, you know. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult to compete in it and to win, you know. And there's some really good players, some excellent teams. So yeah, it's enjoyable. It's really good. You know, that's the way a league should be.
And with you, all your home games are played at the moment at Dumbarton.
That's correct.
Stadium, which it's a stadium I've kind of been to quite a few times. I think it's a stunning stadium now. The settings cracking, but how does that go with playing in another stadium?
Yeah, it's never been easy, John. You know, we've faced a lot of criticism over the years for it. You know, some of it unfounded, some of it, well, okay, just take it on the chin and move on. You know, so it's been a sort of huge source of frustration for us. We've had many attempts to get our own stadium, many attempts to get our own ground, you know, land, if you like, you know, but we've been thwarted several times, you know. And this is stuff that people don't actually realise, you know. People think, oh, we're just happy to float about stadium to stadium. We wanted our own stadium, we want our own stadium, we want our own ground, but it's the costings now are, it's just out of reach for most clubs now, you know. And people criticise us for sharing Dumbarton, and they criticise us for sharing at Alloa, etc. And yeah, fair enough, I'll take it on the chin. But the reality of the economics of Scottish football is, you know, ground sharing isn't a bad thing. You know, it's, you know, teams in Scotland, there's no money in Scottish football, so to speak, when you compare to other parts, you know, England, etc. So teams have to actually make the most of what money they have, you know, and I don't see why more teams wouldn't ground share. Now, I know there are a lot of people who will listen to this at the time and screaming at the screen, well, that's what rubbish, blah, blah, blah. So always have your own ground. Fair play. If you've got your own ground, absolutely brilliant. I'm envious. But for as much as we've tried and the economics of it, it's just out of reach at the moment.
And the thing is, I mean, if you look at, I would say Clyde, for example, who are now playing their games at Hamilton Stadium, and one of the biggest surprises to me was how successful that had been, because I had heard with the Clyde aspect a lot of criticism in the stadium and the team, but it's been massively successful. The fans still turn up. I mean, my biggest shock was a few months ago going to a game and seeing the amount of fans that Clyde had there, and because of the criticism I had seen, I'll be honest and say I thought there probably won't be a lot of fans here, and there was close to 1,000.
Yeah,
And I thought, well, it's obviously not that bad. And then also in speaking to people from Clyde, you know, they love the setup. They love kind of having that there, and they've got all the amenities and facilities that they need in order to kind of run and function. So, you know, I'm very much one that thinks it's a great thing, and probably, you know, especially in the kind of lower levels with the amount of costings that there is, and the amount of different costings that kind of come about, that can be a massive thing to then invest in other areas.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, a point I would like to get across as well, John, you know, people think, oh, you just go and share another stadium and, you know, that's you, but you're actually paying for the privilege of doing that. You know,
Yeah.
It's not cheap. You know, people think, oh, you just don't need to worry about any repairs or anything like that, you know, you need to do. You're paying for all that, you know, when you're sharing with another team, you're paying them for the privilege of using their facility. And built into that will be costings for contingencies of repairs, etc. You know, so it's not a case of I'll just turn up and we just play there. You know, you're giving them cash to play there, which is fantastic. You have a magnificent relationship with them, Martin, absolutely first class. But you know, it's mutually beneficial, I think.
Yeah, no, and definitely not. You know, I fully agree. I think the benefits in either side is fantastic, and probably an element of the game that doesn't get utilised or spoke about enough.
Yeah.
Is the benefits involved in doing that, because, you know, one that's, and you know, Dumbarton, as we spoke about before on air, is a place that I've been to quite a bit. Stevie been on the show, and somebody I speak to quite regular, is a great setup with great facilities and things there. If the club are able to generate a bit of money and you're able to utilise that, then surely in the kind of grander schemes of Scottish football, that's a fantastic thing to do.
Totally agree. Totally agree. You know, I just think, you know, when you look at the overall picture of Scottish football, you know, and you see teams struggling at every level, you know, financially, what do you do to solve that problem? You know, so you've got to look at every avenue, and as one of the avenues, sharing your ground, you know, and you know, making that financially viable for you. It doesn't suit everyone. I understand that, totally get it, you know, but I just think, you know, we need to think outside the box a wee bit more.
Yeah. And then I suppose to kind of look at the other aspects of it, if we look at the view in the pyramid system for the promotion, and that's a topic that every guest that I've had on we've spoke about, and you can imagine the opinions vary
absolutely.
throughout. But what's your kind of view on how the pyramid system works within Scotland?
Yeah, listen, I think it should be open. I think it should be opened up. You know, I'm quite vocal on that, and I've said it before. We voted for increased ventilation and the relegation at the last vote in the Lowland League. I think any proper pyramid to function needs that. Look at the pyramid system in England. You know, they've got a great system. You know, you've got automatic relegation and promotion through the levels. We are sort of hamstrung, and I can see the point of the Lowland League. There's certain clubs have, you know, taken a view that until the SPFL open up automatic relegation and promotion for our champion club and the Highland League's champion club, well, we're not going to do anything at the bottom end, which I understand. I do get it, you know, but for any proper pyramid to function, it needs to flow, you know, and it's not flowing at the moment. I understand why the SPFL don't want to, you know, there's a wee bit of self-protection there, you know, from clubs who don't want to be the next one to fall through the trap door down to the Lowland League or the Highland League. But I think something has to give, you know, and I just think it's not working at the moment. There's too many disgruntled people. There's too many teams who are missing out, and I think, you know, personally speaking, and this is a personal opinion, I think the SFA should maybe step in and say, listen, no, you know, you're banging heads together here. This is what's going to happen. As the governing body of Scottish football, this is what we want to happen. It won't happen. I get it, understand that, you know, but no, listen, I'm all for I'm all for opening things up. I don't think it's right at the moment, and I get why teams are voting against it to protect themselves, but at some point something's got to give, and I don't know when that will be.
For me, it probably opened my eyes as obviously, and again, I always appreciate every guest that's come on. You've come on, but it's everybody else that's came on up until now, right? And if I look at, before yourself, and I look at Kevin Mackey of Brecon, I look at Ricky Waddle at Caledonian Braves, I look at Lee Bullen. I know I appreciate he's now not at Ayr United, but when he came on, he was at Ayr United. I've got Darren Young at Stirling Albion, Stevie Farrell, and the list kind of goes on and on. Even guys like Mixu Pataline and things like that. Now, the reason that I bring this up is because everyone seems to have a very similar view on the leagues. Now, the reason that I say about this being eye-opening for me and from my position is because I had Lee Bullen, for example, and I can say this because this has been recorded and it's went out live. He spoke about how, and for lack of a better word, how kind of boring it became in the fact that they're playing the same teams 4 times, for example, and how opening leagues up more and stretching it out a bit would be fantastic because you're playing teams a couple of times, home and away a season, and you're doing that, and it keeps things fresh. And I can't remember who it was that had then told me that because of the way the cup draws went, they played one team something like 8 times in a season.
It can happen,
We look at Kevin Mackey, who I know has also been very vocal. One thing that I never knew until he had came on was when they won that league, they didn't get any financial benefit for that.
No, there's no financial benefit for winning, certainly winning the Lowland League. I don't know if it's different in the Highland League, but there's certainly no prize money in the Lowland League, and that's a whole other issue about the way finances are structured in Scottish football. I just find it incredible. All the money. I'm going slightly off topic here, but if you look at recently the solidarity payments that are going to be handed out to SPL clubs because of Rangers and Celtic's success.
Yep.
So I think it's £650,000 per team for 9 teams. Why wouldn't you filter that money down through the leagues, through the 42 teams in the SPFL? Because all you're doing is strengthening at the top, and okay, you're not weakening at the bottom because it's money they never had, but you're not giving them a chance to improve, to make things better, do stuff at the ground, blah, blah, blah. I just don't get why you wouldn't filter that money down through the league, sorry.
Yeah.
That's another topic instead of talking finance.
No, and I totally agree because, and I appreciate what goes on at the kind of SPL level and things and, where the kind of money comes from and how that's filtered. But it is to invest in Scottish football, is to invest in Scottish football at all levels.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, start and finish in the SPL. That
it doesn't
goes across.
Yeah. We've got teams coming up through Tier 5, so in the Highland and the Lowland League, who are more than capable of holding their own in the SPFL, sorry. And it's been proven. You've had Spartans go up, you've had Edinburgh City going up, Kelty Hearts going up, all teams who went up, Bonnyrigg Rose, another one, who have all went up and held their own, and so there is a lot of potential down below, and I'm going to throw it out there. Maybe that's what they're scared of. Maybe, they see teams that are coming up and going, oh, I don't want part of that. They look as if they've got a bit of backing, or they look as if they're decent, so they become a threat to the teams who are trying to stave off relegation, again, another part of the, not opening up, perhaps.
And I don't know about yourself, and it was a conversation I've had with a couple of people that have been on, but when you looked at just the divisions in Scotland, when you had your SPL, your Championship, first and second, without naming teams and without kind of putting them in that, that kind of bracket, but it was the same teams you would see bottom two year after year.
Yep.
Before we had, you're able to kind of drop down. Me growing up, there was always the same couple of teams that I would see there consistently. And now that this has opened up and there are chances for teams to come in and prove themselves, I think the part that I found mad was, and I'll take Albion Rovers as the example. Reason being is it's a club that I've covered, but I did go to their games against the Spartans last season. Now, when you looked at Rovers, still had the chance to stay up, but it finished bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, that's relegated.
Yeah, if you're the worst team, you should be relegated, and that's the way it should be. I mean, for us to get, or any of our teams to get into the SPFL, first of all, you've got a 2-leg playoff against the Highland League champions. Then you've got a 2-leg playoff against Team 42. So you have to play an extra 4 games at the end of your season. And even though you're a champion club, you need to play another 4 games to prove that. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense, and it just makes a mockery of the pyramid, I'm afraid.
And just to kind of touch on a part when he says, and I appreciate it, the kind of lowland with there being nothing for winning the league. Just kind of confirms all. Kevin Mackey had explained that for winning the Highland, they get no finance for that as well, and he found that baffling, which was something until he came on I had no idea about. So it's, for me, it's tough enough at that level. And I'm sure obviously you'll know far better than myself. I just get to talk about it. You actually do it. No. But you can see how tough it is with all different avenues, and even just having a squad there to have in, because I'm assuming injuries hit at this level harder than they hit at other levels due to squad sizing. But then to win the league, to have no financial benefit, if you don't win, as you say, the extra 4 games, if you don't manage to go through in game 1 and game 2 over 2 legs, then it's back to where you were last season.
That's right. Yeah, you're starting again.
Go at it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's difficult. It's really, really difficult. Everybody thinks you've won the league, so that's great. But a lot of people don't realise what you have to go through then to move on from that. And I think it could be soul destroying, to be honest with you. You've got to play another 4 games. You're champions. You're celebrating. Something to, walking around the park with a trophy, whatever they do. And then somebody reminds you, oh, listen, guys, we can't really celebrate too much because we've got another 4 games to play. Possibly, it's just an absolute nonsense. It really is. It's beyond. I mean, any other system, any other team, or any other league in the world probably would look at us and go, "You get a cheek to call that a pyramid,"
Yeah,
really have, honestly.
And I think, and just kind of touch on that part. Finally, is what I find baffling is how many people have came on, and like yourself, all in positions, whether it be manager, director, whatever, and they all have the same, are very similar anyway. I don't want to say everybody's views exact same, but very similar views on it, and still, it remains the way it is. So I suppose the question I'm asking, so it's maybe a question I haven't asked, is how does that change?
It's a good question, John, and it's one nobody's really got the answer to. It needs to change from the top. It needs to change from somebody making a decision. That's why I go back to earlier on. Does it need the SFA to get involved in this and say, no, listen, guys, this is the way we want it to function? I understand the SPFL are a members' organisation, get it, and they've got to respect the votes of their members. But that's never going to change. We have been banging this drum now for years, and it's never changed. It's not even moved. The closest we got to it last season was possibly the Conference League, maybe going to start, but it needs someone to grasp the nettle and say, no, listen, this is going to work properly. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Who that person is, I don't know. I mean, I've already made a case it should maybe be, the SFA should get involved. They won't do it, I understand that. But I don't see a solution in the near future for it, unfortunately. And it's causing a logjam, John, because what's happening is, as I've said to you earlier, because the SPFL aren't opening up, the Lowland League are then saying, well, we're not opening up until they open up. So it's just like, it's going all the way down the line, and
Yeah.
at some point somebody needs to say, no, we'll open up, right? And let's take the cork out of the bottle and let people, let it flow, But there's too much self-preservation, too much self-interest for it to happen at the moment.
And I suppose just to kind of touch on that as well, because one thing that I learned, and again through doing this, one of the guests, I think said on, had been Gordon Smith.
Yeah.
And obviously with his position at the SFA historically, I was quite interested on the workings of that. Now, again, anything that I say, just kind of make it, not just for yourself, but to people watching, to make it clear, if they go and click on Gordon Smith's video, this is the exact conversation as it was. So it is stuff that he was happy to be published and go out. When he was there, he never done his due diligence on the job. So what he didn't realise was that he didn't really make many decisions or any decisions. He had to propose something that he could only propose at a meeting that happened once every 30 days, and then that would go to a vote. So several things, and without kind of getting into it, he had explained on the podcast, and he did talk about the Lowland League and things and stuff that he had proposed that didn't get through. I think his was more to do with areas, so that the travel was less. Things I think he'd looked to introduce VAR before VAR was introduced, but all these things that went through such a rigorous process, even just to be, oh no, that's not happening.
Yeah, I've thought, I actually know Gordon, and I've talked to him several times about it, and I know he, I'm sure he's still told his frustration at some of the stuff that he couldn't do, So I totally back you up on what you're saying. It's not really changed, to be honest with you, John. That's the problem. Gordon's been there,
And I think that as well, I'm glad you said that's probably kind of touching on my point as well, was that if you look at when he was in that position until now, you expect things to improve, things to work better, things to run better, but it doesn't appear to be different at all.
Nah, it's not moved at all, really. There's not been a lot of mail case. We've had the introduction of the pyramids evolve, so to speak, in terms of bringing the West of Scotland League across and stuff like that. But there's been no movement in important areas, which are the movement of teams, etc. But nothing's really changed where we need it to change. I think that's probably the best way to sum it up.
And I suppose to kind of come back on to Broomhill, what is the kind of vision there?
Yeah, I said we've always striving to be promoted. It's not happened yet for us, and it might not happen. That's just the way it goes. But I'm a firm believer, unless you start out at the start of a season aiming to win the league, what's the point of being there? You've got to go out and do your best, and every team does that. And some teams will have different ambitions. Some teams will, want to survive. Some teams are quite happy with what they're doing. We strive to be promoted, but it's becoming more and more difficult every year. It's becoming really, really tough. Because you're up against some well-funded teams.
Yeah.
Some teams that are well managed, etc. It's really difficult, but our ambitions remain the same. We won't deviate from that.
And with the the level being where it is, and the reason I touch on that is, again, probably historically looking back at other conversations, but in regards to players and things like that, the contracts are generally shorter most of the time.
Yeah, usually 1 year contracts, John. And that's the way you operate at this level.
So in regards to having that balancing that, kind of backbone and longevity, I'm assuming that becomes a lot tougher to maintain.
Yeah, it does, and it makes it difficult, to operate sometimes. But, as long as you do your due diligence and do your homework on players, it can pay off, And listen, it's a two-way street because, listen, the player might not suit your club. So you've only got them on a 1 year contract, so that makes it easier for the club. Conversely, they might be an absolute diamond, and you've only got them on a 1 year contract, and you lose out on them, to another club. But listen, that's just the nature of it. I think it's down to the club to monitor these situations and offer extensions when appropriate. So I think there's ways of managing it, and you keep an eye on it on a week to week basis.
And looking at the kind of rest of the season, and I appreciate, with that league, it's a bit all over the place in regards to the amount of games that some teams have played, the amount of games others have got in hand. As I say, it's a league I kind of follow quite a lot. And over the last few weeks, I'm sure you'll appreciate, at times trying to find a game to go to. It's been a nightmare.
Aye.
And I'll be honest and say that when I had read just before we come off, so we spoke about your game being called off tomorrow, that was actually the message I sent to my dad earlier for the game that I had picked for tomorrow for us to go to.
Typical.
And it is extremely typical because he'll tell me I'm not allowed to pick again. So I think that's the last 3 or 4 that I've picked that have all been called off.
You're cursed.
And he hates it because he's like, I've got a Saturday with no football because you pick games that gets called off.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I understand his frustration.
But I suppose the kind of question is, what is your outlook for the kind of remainder of the season?
Yeah, we've been through a really tough patch in the last 2 to 3 months. We've been absolutely decimated by injuries, and we've made an effort. We went with a really young squad this season. We're developing a lot of players, and I suppose it's to see them continue developing. And finish as high up the league as we can. Some of them have made massive strides over the last few months, and it's been great to watch. And a lot of teams, won't take a chance on youngsters because, sometimes it doesn't equal success straight away. But, I think we're taking a view as well. Listen, we can nurture these guys over a period of 1 to 2 years. We can maybe push on with them. But some of them made massive strides. So it'd be their continued development and, just listen, push as hard as we can and see where we finish. We want to be as high up the league as possible, of course. So that will be what we're concentrating on. We're not going to win the league. So it's just a case of, starting, building, put the building blocks in place for next season.
And, as I'd say, it's a league that I follow quite a lot. And I've actually seen, I won't say all the teams within the league, but I've seen probably over 3/4 of the teams so far this season. And the one thing that continually baffles me is, and I say this not from my point of view, but if I've said to somebody, what game are you going to see this weekend? And I've mentioned it, and I say, oh, where are they sitting? And it's maybe been teams at the bottom, for example, East Kilbride Albion Rovers, which, as we both know in the league, regardless of the game.
Massive disparity in the league,
And Rovers beat them 2-1.
That's what can happen.
And I think, that was the kind of thing, like, I'm going to be honest and say, it was probably a kind of tactical victory as well as a scoreline victory. It wasn't like free-flowing football played them off the park. But a few weeks prior, I had went to East Kilbride and watched them in their cup game winning 7-0, I think, get on about, 12-0, and their right back scores a hat-trick.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's just when you look about every team that I've seen so far, it's not as if, and it's the kind of way to word it, but it's not as if I've seen a poor team. Yeah, they've maybe had a poor result, but I've not witnessed a poor team.
Yeah, I think that's what happens. You get a wee bit of inconsistency in the league, and depending on what teams get injuries and which hasn't, and what I love about the league is anyone is probably capable of beating anyone on any given day. Now, it's the key, obviously, is doing that consistently, and that's a different issue altogether.
Yeah.
I think, most teams are capable of pulling out a result on any given day against another team, and that's what makes it quite good to watch. So yeah, listen, it's a great league. I thoroughly enjoy it, and a lot of good people in it. So it's been really good for us.
And do you know what? I totally agree. Obviously, as I say, I'd started doing this probably about 7 or so months ago, and it was because I started to watch the lower league games and thought, there was teams I hadn't really heard much of before and things like that. So I started to put something together and try and integrate that with, speaking to people from other leagues and things, and always kind of coming back to the setup and the pyramid and their views and their thoughts on it. But I totally agree that I don't think it's, you can see a great game in any day. Any team's capable of beating anybody else. But, and this will be, I suppose, the final question on it. It's not publicised a lot. And I'm not talking about your club specifically. I'm talking about the league in general. I mean, what's your kind of views with that?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair comment. I mean, it's probably not as talked about as much as it should be talked about. But all we can do is keep trying to be successful. With teams. For instance, ourselves playing in the Scottish Cup there on Saturday. Brings a wee bit of profile to the league. And we got a request. I did an interview with Radio 5 Live on Saturday prior to the game. So it's stuff like that. You just need to keep the name the league out there and people are talking about it to get people to talk about it. So I suppose it depends on how good the teams do and stuff like that. And a lot of that's got to do with it. But it's down to the teams as well to promote the league with that.
Yeah.
The members to promote the league. And as long as we keep doing that, I'm sure the brand will grow and grow.
And just when you're talking about kind of teams and the promotion, and I'm going to be honest with you, right? This bit might wind up getting edited out because I'll imagine when I message him after this, he won't be buzzing that I said it. But I watched the Dumbarton game, obviously their cup game, and the one thing I understand it, I suppose, but Dumbarton get very little airtime, promotion talked about. I mean, yeah, they credited the stadium. Anytime the camera panned over to the kind of touchlines, it was always at one side. Anytime they were kind of talking about much, it was always results and it was always based on one team.
Yeah, national broadcasters, could help us out a bit. The Lowland League schools are covered on the BBC on a Saturday. But I would say 75% of the time the scores are wrong, or they've got the wrong name, or just don't update them, and they just pay lip service to it. To be honest with you, and that's the problem. Us on Saturday, we were away to Inverness Cali Thistle. They had us down as BSC Glasgow, a different badge, and blah blah blah. It's just a wee bad research. That's all it needs, and it's annoying, it's frustrating. But let's be honest, they're only interested in a couple of teams, really. Let's be honest. Come on.
I totally agree.
They're only interested in two teams, and it's like with Viaplay, and the broadcasters. We know. I mean, I was laughing yesterday. Viaplay during the Celtic Bucky game, saying, "Oh, the draw's later tonight, and we'll tell you which tie we've chosen." During the broadcast, and I goes, "I know what tie you're going to choose. It's either Celtic or Rangers."
Yeah.
You don't. There's nothing else you're going to choose. So we know. I get it, understand it. But a wee bit more publicity in terms of giving teams, a wee bit more of a chance. In the early rounds of the Scottish Cup, for instance. I mean, I think it was the last round, the third round. Great tie, great two clubs, Raith Rovers and Dunfermline. But why not give some of the lower league teams who are starting the competition a shot, and get a bit of exposure, and I realise they've got a telly audience to satisfy it. I understand that, but I just think they could do so much better.
And I agree with you, and you'll probably be a lot of people that listening to this will know exactly when I mention it. But previously, Stirling Uni and Albion Rovers were a televised game, and I happened to go. And I'll be honest and say it was probably not what I was expecting in regards to entertainment. It was a great game to watch. I think it kind of done strides for that level of football. Yeah. And I think the frustration is in that game, did, in my view, kind of had everything about it. A couple of controversial decisions, it had some goals, tackles, and what else. But then moving forward, or going with other things, as you say, there's one area they're interested in, and that's where it sticks to every time.
Yeah, that's that. I even noticed that, in the early rounds of the Scottish Cup, there's a live game every round, and they've got people on the pundits on, who are very good in their field, very good, but why not get someone from these leagues to be a pundit? So they'll then know. You can see, you're cringing sometimes. You see what they're talking about. They don't actually know what they're talking about in terms of our level. Get somebody on for your level as a pundit who actually knows the teams, who actually knows the players. And again, it's paying lip service to it.
And John, and just to kind of saying that, so I'm 35, 36, right? The reason I say this is because I had a failed football career, as it were, right? So basically just didn't make it, right? But I tried to get involved in football and do a bit of analysis and stuff like that. Now, I was doing it for a club, and I will never forget, and a famous broadcaster used to sit next to me at this club week on week and turn to me and say, "Who's that? Who's he? Who did he play with?" And I would literally be sitting doing this, and it took a wee while for it to dawn on me because I was a lot younger at the time. I think it was a point me saying the age because it was about probably 14 years ago. But I thought, I'm actually doing this guy's job.
Well, sure.
But he's the guy
getting all the credit.
that's getting all the credit, getting the paychecks, and I'm sitting here, and my benefit for doing this is experience, getting in for nothing, and getting a ball for at half time.
Aye.
Which, don't get me wrong, I loved because I loved watching football. But at the same time, I thought, who's the mug here?
Exactly. I know. Listen, I think we've all been there, John. That's the thing, we've all been there, but it's just another rant by me, another source of frustration, It could be better, and it gets back to the original point. Why don't we get as much publicity? Well, you need people to actually want to give you it in the first place, and I just don't think we get that level of coverage that we should.
Yeah. And just to kind of appreciate the time that you've spent, and the final part of it is I've tried something new over the last few guests for something a bit lighter. So we see how it goes. I'm not going to lie and say this isn't perfect every time, but that's what editing's for. So we can make it as perfect as possible. Basically, all it is a few kind of quick questions. Some might be football related, some won't be. And we go for that. First question is favourite type of food?
Chicken.
Favourite TV show?
The Office.
Favourite film?
Goodfellas.
So that's the first person I've agreed with in kind of most of the answers. Other than football, favourite sport to watch in the telly?
NFL.
And sorry, I had golf in my head. So
I was going to say golf, but I do prefer I just edge the NFL.
Favourite person you've met in football?
Wow, good question. I've met so many people, and
you can name a few. I'll allow a few to be named.
Walter Smith's nice. He was a great guy. Really, really, really nice and pleasant. To be fair, Brendan Rodgers is as well. Nice guy. Oh wow, there's loads. I mean, they'll all come to me as soon as I come off this show. Honestly, tell you, they'll all come to me. Tell you who I met on Saturday. Charlie Crusty. Lovely guy. And I have to say, everyone else at Inverness were absolutely superb. They were great. There's so many. I just, you've stumped me with that one, mate. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right, mate. You're all right. We've actually got further than I've got with some who the edit had to be when I says favourite TV show after about a 30-second pause went, I'll watch telly.
Sounds about fair.
Um, the last kind of question on it, and it's the first time I've asked this question, so if it's
On you go.
we'll see how it goes. Your favourite football story?
My favourite memory in football was 2020. We played East Fife in the third round of the Scottish Cup away at Bayview, or New Bayview as it is. We were 3-1 down with half an hour to go. And I remember saying to my pal who was there, we don't deserve this. We deserve to, we don't deserve a tanking, because we played really well that day. The team on their team bus on the way up were all thought they were being sick. There was a sickness bug in the camp, and everyone was sitting with their hoodies up and just like, I'm going, this is going to be a disaster. We took the lead in the first minute, and then we went 3-1 down, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is going to be terrible. And we came back 1-4-3 in the second minute injury time. Absolute, my best day ever in football. My best day ever. It was a fantastic day. That was a year we went on to the fifth round and played Hibs. Yep. Live on telly at Alloa. Yeah, but that East Fife game lives long in the memory. I mean, I still watch it now. I watch the highlights of it every week, But because East Fife they were second in the first division at the time, I think they were flying, and just the state of our team that day, illness everywhere, and to be 3-1 down to a team like that and to come back and win 4-3 in the second minute injury time was just like, it's nothing I've ever experienced before in football. And I've been to a lot of football games, and it was great, it was just a fantastic day. Fantastic day.
And I think that's probably the perfect ending question, George. I really do appreciate your time.
No worries, mate.
Coming on. As I say, thanks for kind of taking the time. Really appreciate it. And look, I will definitely, when the games are on, get out to
of course.
Again.
You'd be more than welcome. Let me know. I get you down. No problem.
I'll definitely be out again. But look, thanks very much for coming on, and all the best for the rest of the season, mate.
I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cheers, John. Thank you. Cheers, mate.